So my good friend Joe the lawyer had a few things to say about Megadungeons, and I'm going to respond to them today on Greyhawk. So Joe the lawyer posted a video on Monday entitled "Why I'll Never Run a Mega Dungeon or Long Hex Crawl Again." And in it, he has a bunch of things to say about mega dungeons and hex crawls. I'm going to focus mostly on the mega dungeons because, that's what I'm good at. And so I think I don't deny that Joe might have had some bad experiences playing in a mega dungeon, but I think that was the fault of the DM. And whether it was him being the DM or he was playing in somebody else's game and they were DMing. I don't think whoever was running the game or games that he was playing really knew what to do with a mega dungeon because he categorizes it as saying, so you run 8 rooms and then you're done for the evening. You need to up your game. Really? Well, let me just clarify that point. Um, the at the Central New York RPG Con earlier this year. I ran Castle of Mount Archmages. That's my mega dungeon. Really huge. It's the one with the you know with the really crazy maps and so forth. And I ran it. I run a 3-hour game. There were 6 people at the table, and we were having a blast. People were laughing and cheering and everything. It was a absolute hoot. And they went through a lot more than 8 rooms. But here's the key: the rooms aren't the only point of the dungeon. It's the process of exploring that is the point of the dungeon. It's not to see how many rooms you can check off the box, because the rooms aren't where all the fun is. The rooms are just one set of points where there's stuff to do. But in the actual dungeon, in the corridors, at the doorways, going through the going down the slopes, finding the pit traps, all that good stuff. All that is part of the immersive experience of exploring a mega dungeon. It has nothing to do with, oh, we just got to see how many rooms we can get through because that's where all the stuff is that they're in the rooms. It's not about that at all. It's you have fun with the process of exploring. Now, you saw that map that I held up briefly. That's on purpose. That is because I want the process of the players making a map to be part of the fun. And the frustration that they feel when they try to map that is part of the fun. When they turn around and they realize that their map is all wrong and they have a corridor going into where a room should be or whatever, and then the whole table bursts out laughing, it's part of the experience. That's what you're there for. You're not there for 8 rooms. You're there for the process of going through the room. You can go through 0 rooms and still have a blast. And that's because the rooms aren't the only place where you have encounters. There are random encounters. Yeah, we're going back to the random encounter thing from last week. The random encounters are in there to make the process of exploration more fun because you're not just going through these empty corridors waiting to see, okay, where's the next room that we can go into? You're actively anticipating what could be around the next corner. If we wait too long here, what's going to come up behind us? That becomes part of the experience. And a good DM knows how to play into that. And it's not always combat. As Eric Tenkar, who also opined on this subject in reply to Joe, said, in another video of his, that you don't always go into combat when you have a random encounter, or any encounter for that matter, because you're going to roll for reaction. Maybe something is friendly in there, or at least neutral. Not everything is a combat, and that makes it not always a slog. Because if you're rolling for reactions in the mega dungeon, not only do you give the players a chance to interact with the denizens of the dungeon beyond the point of a sword, and thus increase their connection and ties to that mega dungeon, because now they're making friends and allies, and and they're learning intelligence about what else is around them. Not only that, but you're also making combat more special when it does happen. It becomes less of a slog that way. Because I'll tell you what a slog is. A slog is when you're in a dungeon and you know you're at a door, and you know there's a room behind the door, and you know you're going to have a combat behind the in that room, and then you're going to get some treasure. That's a slog when you do that over and over and over and over. So I don't buy that mega dungeons are slogs by their very nature. Now, if you run one by a crappy DM who doesn't know how to use a mega dungeon, then yeah, it absolutely can be a slog. But I ran Castle Mad Archmage for 3 years, and it was never a slog. And another thing about that whole concept is that the mega dungeon, by its nature, doesn't always have to be the adventure that you go on.
Hi, everybody. Please help me keep Greyhawk alive by liking this video and subscribing. It really does help. You can also become a member of the channel or support me on Patreon and get early access to my videos, exclusive content, free or at-cost copies of my Greyheim Adventures modules, and more. Thanks, and now back to the show.
The way I pitch, when I'm in a convention I'm selling, the way I pitch Castle Mad Archmage, and I did this past weekend at Epicon, it's it can be used as what's called a tentpole dungeon. And a tentpole dungeon is something that's always there in the background, right? It's always there as an option. It doesn't have to be the main focus of the campaign. It doesn't have to be what your players do every day, whenever you're playing, every week. You know, oh God, now we got to go back to Castle Mad Archmage. What are we going to do now? More corridors. Whoopee. No, that's not it at all. It's there always as an option. Let's say your players have just finished some adventure that you had, your 8-room dungeon that you're so proud of, and now they're back in Greyhawk City, and they decide, okay, next couple of weeks we're going to go back into Castle Mad Archmage. Okay, great. And the reason I put secret entrances to the lower levels of the dungeon is precisely for that reason, so that you can just scoot back into it when you want to, and not have to go through and fight the kobolds on level 1 all the time. So that that campaign tentpole concept is key to the proper use of a mega dungeon. It doesn't have to be the focus of the campaign. It was when Gary was DMing it, and he managed to run a campaign for decades using that single mega dungeon. So I'm going to take issue with the fact that Joe characterizes them as all being slogs, because I think that's a product of bad DMing and not treating the mega dungeon material as it should be treated. And there's no mistake. A mega dungeon is a different thing than a regular dungeon. It needs to be treated differently by the DM. Use those random encounters, use those encounter reaction tables, because out of those, that's where the story comes from. You need to give the players a way to interact with the dungeon, right? Because if it is all just combat all day, every time, then yeah, it is going to get a little boring. But if you give your players opportunities to role play, even with the orcs and the hobgoblins that are in there, then you're going to have a much, much better time. And your players are going to have more fun. You're going to have more fun, and it'll be a better experience all around. Now, the other part of Joe's video, and I'm much less passionate and expert about Hexcrawls than I am about Mega Dungeons, but I do know this: the way he characterizes the Hexcrawls is very, very different than the way I've ever done it. The way he describes it is you go through a hex and you roll random on a random table to see what's there, and then you go to the next hex and you roll again, and the next hex and you roll again. That is not what I ever did as a hex crawl. For me, as the DM, I had all those hexes already laid out and defined what's there. I didn't need to roll randomly because I knew what was in each hex. And then the players would go in and explore those hexes and find out what's there. But that's a far cry from having it done randomly on a table where it might not make a lot of sense. If I'm designing a hex crawl, if there's going to be logical points of interest that are all over the setting, and there's going to be ways for the players to make informed choices because they have some idea of what's where. They might not know exactly what it is or what its nature is or where it is, but they're going to have some idea that, oh yeah, if we head north, we're going to hit some sort of dwarven ruins, and then that gives them a choice, right? But if you're just blindly saying, okay, you're in a hex, which of the 6 directions do you want to go? Well, yeah, that's not fun because that doesn't give the players are making a blind choice, right? And when I talk about player agency, that's what I talk about. is, it isn't that they get to control the narrative or whatever. It's that they are allowed to make informed choices rather than blind choices. And I think that's also key to running the hex crawl, is that they have some idea, some vague notion of what's out there. And if you look up that the very famous West Marches campaign, which is out on the web, it was a great way to do that. It gives a very detailed instructions on how to lay out a hex crawl that way, and that is the way I've always done it. So I think that is a really great primer on how to do a hex crawl. So Joe, I hope you take these comments to heart. I think you're dead wrong on both issues. I think it's a question of just not understanding the material, and you're doing it wrong. So anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this one. Joe, I hope you enjoyed it too. Take it in the spirit in which it's offered. Let me know your thoughts on Megadungeons and Hexcrawls. I would love to hear it. And I hope you're all doing well and have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thanks for watching today's video. Please remember to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Below you'll find links to my Patreon, which helps make these videos possible. You'll also find the web store where you can buy my books, and my blog where you'll find all sorts of free downloads and other articles. Thanks, and have a great day.